Section 1. Making friends. Hi, my name is Bill. Hi, I'm Mary. Nice to meet you, Mary. Likewise. Where are you from? I'm from the USA, and you? Oh, I'm from Finland. Finland? Where is that? It's in Northern Europe. Oh, I didn't know. And where in the America are you from? I'm from Texas. That's in the South. Yes, I've heard of it. Have you really? Sure, it's quite famous. Section 2. Around town. Do you know this town well? Sure, I have been here many times. How many libraries are there here? There are 3. 3, that's a lot for a small town. Well, one belongs to the town. And the other 2? They belong to the university. Can anyone use them? No. Only students can use the university libraries. But can anyone use the town library? Of course. I have been going there for years. But really you should join the library. How do I do that? You gave them your name and address, and they gave you a ticket. Good. That sounds easy. Section 3. Sir, Madam, Mr., Mrs., Miss and MS. In Western countries, many titles are used. Men are usually called Mr. Women can have different titles. A woman can choose her title. If she is married, she can call herself Mrs. or MS. If a woman is unmarried, she can call herself Miss or MS. So when do we use Sir or Madam? They are often used in formal letters. Sometimes we hear people call others Sir or Madam. Yes. They are formal terms and very polite. So how do we know when to use them? Well, if you don't know people, you can use those terms. It is considered too polite. Some people would think so, but don't worry about it. Most people don't mind if you guess. Section for going places. Travel can be very exciting. Many people like to travel. People think travel is expensive. This need not be so. We can travel by many ways. Walking is a form of travel. It can be very interesting. Walking enables us to see many things in detail. We can travel by plane, bus, train or car. When we travel that way, we get to places quickly. However, we don't see things so deeply. A bicycle is a quicker way to travel than walking. By bicycle, we can still see things in detail. We can stop easier and examine what we find interesting. But all types of travel are interesting. Section 5 in the home. There are many kinds of rooms in a house. The bedroom is where we sleep. In the kitchen we cook our meals. In the dining room, we eat the food we have cooked. Lounges are used for relaxing. Some houses have a study. The study is like an office at home. The bathroom is where we wash. Some bathrooms have a bath. Other bathrooms have a shower. Most bathrooms have a toilet. Some houses have more than one bathroom. Several bedrooms can make a part of a house. A house can also have a garden. A garden may have a small house called a shed. Section 6. Cities, towns, and villages. A city is really just a large town. A town is just a large village. A small village without any shops is called a hamlet. A hamlet may have only a few houses. A village will contain a few shops and several houses. Cities have lots and lots of people. Towns have fewer people. Villages and hamlets have even fewer people. In England, every city has a cathedral. A cathedral is a large church. Some European countries also have cathedrals. Towns have several churches. A village will often have at least one church. A hamlet may or may not have a church. Churches are an important part of cities, towns, villages, and hamlets. Section 7. In the garden. Many houses have gardens. But gardens are not just for houses. Many towns and cities have public gardens. House gardens can have several uses. People use them to grow things. If the climate is right, people like to have lawns. Lawns are areas of grass. The grass will be kept, cut and neat. Flowers are popular in gardens too. They make the garden beautiful. Some people use gardens to grow food. Vegetables are popular, but so is fruit. Public gardens usually don't have vegetables and fruit. They have trees, bushes, lawns, and flowers. Gardens are to relax in a beautiful environment. Section 8. Playing games. How many games can you think of? Well, that depends on what kinds of games you mean. Any kind. Well, there are all kinds of sports. Like what? Like football, swimming, tennis, etc. Yes. Those games are for outdoors. Sometimes swimming and tennis are not. You're right, but what about indoor games? Like table tennis, badminton, and volleyball. Yes. But those need special places. What do you mean? Well, you can't play them at home. Oh, you mean games like chess, drafts and cards. Yeah, they are games too. Section 9. Types of work. What does your father do? He is a teacher. What does he teach? Mathematics. Does your mother work? Sure, she is a doctor. In the hospital. Yes, and your parents? My father is an engineer. And your mother? She was once a secretary in a factory. My sister is a soldier. Oh, my brother will be going into the army. So, they'll both be in the army. Yes. And I have another brother who has been in the Navy. Section 10. Different kinds of eating. I like restaurants. What kind of restaurants? For food, of course. Ah, but there are many kinds of restaurants. Like what? Well, there are fancy restaurants. You mean expensive ones? Yes. And there are cheap ones too. Like fast food restaurants. Well, yes. But not all cheap ones are fast food. Like McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken. We usually call that one KFC. What about cafes? Are they restaurants? Some are, if they serve food. But their menus are usually limited. Section 11 Time. There are 3 different ways of telling the time. We can say, for example, 3:15, 3:15. Or we can say 3:15, 3:15. We can also say 03:15 hours, 3:15. That's if it is 3:15 a.m. If it is 3:15 p.m., we say 15:15 hours, 15:15. We call that the 24-hour clock. If it is 3:45, we can say that. Or we can say 3:45, 3:45. 3:35 becomes 25 to 4. We can say 3:05, 3:05. We can't say 3:06, 3:06. We must say 3:06, 3:06. If it is not 5, 10, 20, 25, 35, 40, 50 or 55, then we must add minutes. But it really doesn't matter which we use if others understand us. Section 12 Different values. Weights and measures are different in different countries. We call the different systems decimal and imperial. Most countries use the decimal system. That's a system that uses units of 10 to count and measure. The imperial system came from England and is still used in some countries. England will have changed to the decimal system by the end of the decade. Many imperial countries are changing to decimal. America uses the imperial system for weights and measures. But America uses decimal for money. Americans use pounds and ounces for weight. The decimal system uses grams and kilograms. The imperial system uses inches, feet, yards, and miles for measuring length. The decimal system uses millimeters, centimeters, meters, and kilometers. In the imperial system, pints, quarts, and gallons measure liquids and fluids. The decimal system uses liters. Section 13 Libraries. Most towns and cities have a library. Libraries are available to everyone. People think that libraries are just for books. They are wrong. In modern libraries, you can borrow many things. Books, of course, are what people expected to find in libraries. Did you know, however, that you can also borrow music? Yes, many libraries will lend CDs and records. Some libraries will also lend computer programs. Do you know why we have libraries? It is to enable those who cannot afford to buy books etc. to have access to them. However, they are not just used by poor people. All kinds of people use them, from children to professors, poor to rich. It would be almost impossible for you or me to collect so many books and CDs. So libraries can be said to be very useful places. Section 14. Cinema, theatre. What's the difference between a cinema and a theatre? Theatres are generally for live performances. Cinemas are for recorded shows. What are live performances? These are where there are people on the stage actually performing there and then. So what sort of performances can we expect? There can be acting of plays, drama, comedy, etc. Anything else? Sure, there can be musical performances by solo artists or by bands. Can I see classical concert at a theatre? Yes, some theatres are used for that. Cinemas are different then. Yeah, cinemas usually show movies. And these are not live. That's right, they were recorded on film long before you see it in the cinema. I don't know which I prefer. Perhaps they are equally as good as each other. Section 15. Flying. We usually fly in aeroplane. But there are different kinds of machines for flying in. The general term for machines we fly in is aircraft. The types most people use for travel are called passenger aircraft. Similar aeroplanes are used for transporting goods. These we term as transport aircraft. Helicopters are used by both the military and by private citizens. However, some aircraft are only used by the military. The military is the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Not just the Air Force use aircraft. Most military aircraft are used for fighting or defense. Many, however, are used for transport. These provide food etc. for the armed forces. Some aircraft fly from ships called aircraft carriers. Even space rockets can be called aircraft. Section 16. Supermarkets. What happens in a supermarket? Well, first, you will pick up a basket or a trolley. What's the difference between a basket and a trolley? A basket is used for just a little shopping. A trolley has wheels and is used when we have a lot to buy. Then when we have chosen which we want, we go shopping. Modern supermarkets have food from all around the world. The food is arranged in sections containing similar foods and supplies. You walk up and down the sections choosing what you want. In big supermarkets, the choice can be very large. You can buy clothes and household items in some supermarkets. When you have finished, you go to the checkout. Here you take all your shopping out of the basket or trolley. The checkout person will then put the items across a machine. The machine tells you how much to pay. Section 17. Children. Children from all around the world are basically the same. Their needs are similar wherever they live. Of course, they need food, parents, and love. However, as children grow older, their needs may differ according to their culture. In some countries, children go to school from the age of 3. In other cultures, children may never go to school at all. When they are babies, they all eat or drink milk. When they are older, their food becomes the same as their parents'. This naturally is different in different parts of the world. In the West, children learn to use knives and forks and spoons. In the East, they use chopsticks and spoons. Children will leave school and start work at different ages. Their education will depend on many things including cultural background. It does not matter if they are from East or West, most people think children are beautiful. It is a shame it changes as they get older. Section 18 Music. Some people say that music is the universal language. Music bridges culture better than language does. Almost everyone in the world knows about classical music. Classical music is the kind written by Beethoven, Bach, Wagner, Tchaikovsky, etc. These composers came from different countries, but their music spread around the world. Today we can buy all kinds of music to listen to. Popular music, also called pop music, generally appeals to teenagers. Rock, jazz, blues, opera, soul and folk music are specialist kinds of music. However, they can appeal to all kinds of people in all countries. In the 1960s and 1970s, the Beatles from England were the most famous musicians. Their music influenced young people around the world. Although they no longer create music like Beethoven, etc., the Beatles' music is still loved and performed. Today there is such a wide variety of music to choose from that it seems difficult. It may be best to try all the different kinds available. Then we can buy and enjoy the ones we like most. Section 19 Famous Writers. Most countries produce a few famous writers. Which writers can you think of from your country? How many writers do you know from other countries? How many are 20th century writers? Perhaps we know the old writers best. In China, everyone has heard of Shakespeare. He was an Englishman, but he died in 1616. So for 400 years, people have remembered Shakespeare. What about American writers? Do you know which are American and which are British? Sometimes it is difficult to know. But most of the famous writers before the 20th century were British. Russia has produced some very famous writers too. Most of the Russian writers are famed for their passion and romance in their books. France also has produced some great writers. And China. Section 20 Famous Musicians. How many musical instruments can you think of? Can you name anyone famous for playing what you chose? How many are from the 20th century? Before then, most famous musicians were also composers. Composers were more famous than the players. Is that the case today? Most of famous musicians before the 20th century played in orchestras. Today, many of the most well-known musicians belong to the rock and pop world. If they create their own music, are they also composers? Yes, they are. But their work is different to that of Beethoven, etc. Is Michael Jackson as famous as Beethoven? Will his work last as long? Modern musicians and composers usually do not stay famous for more than a year or two. Today's fame is often short-lived. But the famous will earn lots and lots of money. It is interesting to compare musicians like Beethoven and Michael Jackson. It is difficult to say which is the best because they are so different. Each one was famous because they gave the public the right thing at the right time. Section 21 Television. How many hours a day do you watch television? In many modern Western countries, the average is 4 hours per day. Many people think it is too much. Do you agree? What are the benefits of watching TV? Its impact since it became popular is tremendous. It is only since the second half of the 20th century that it became available to most people in the West. In China it is less than that. But now it is so popular that it can be seen everywhere. What do most people like to watch on TV? Well, it can be different according to their age. Movies, of course, are popular, as is the news and the weather reports. Soap operas are also very popular indeed. Some soaps, as we call them, have been running for over 40 years. Name some soaps from your own country's television networks. Today, due to satellite broadcasting, we are able to get programs from all over the world. In Europe, for example, people can see CCTV. Did you know that? Section 22 Radio. When television became popular, people thought the radio would not survive. As we all know today, that was wrong. In fact, most people in the West listen to radio more than they watch TV. Do you believe that? Well, they listen in the morning when they're getting ready to go to work. They listen when they are driving their cars. Some listen when they are walking in the street. Sometimes we see people with Walkmans. But we don't know if they are listening to radio or to their own music. For many, many years, we learned about new music only from the radio. Today perhaps television programs like MTV are taking over. Have you heard of the BBC and VOA? Then you probably know these from learning English. Many students in China use the radio to help them study language. Although there are television stations like CCTV9 which can help, radios are cheap to buy and easy to carry around. So radio still has some advantages over television. Section 23 Newspapers. Why is it called a newspaper? Because it contains news, of course. But modern newspapers contain much more than just news. They have competitions and puzzles and advice. They are one of the oldest forms of mass communication. They are printed in virtually every language in the world. Newspapers find their way into almost every home in the world. Some print pictures in color today. Some are more like magazines than newspapers. Front page news is a term from newspapers, which has come into our daily language. Try to think of all the kinds of newspapers there are. What about company newspapers, local newspapers, national and international financial newspapers? There are too many to know them all. But we can know the importance of newspapers. How many uses do you know for old newspapers? Section 24 School. I like school, I hate school. Why do people feel like that? Which are you, a lover or a hater? Do you or did you enjoy school and learning? So what makes a school good or bad? Perhaps it is the teachers? If you have good caring teachers, you will enjoy learning. Or is it the classmates that make it good or bad? Why do we spend so many years at school? It should prepare us for our adult life. Was your school successful at doing that? People can have very strong ideas about what school should and shouldn't do. Whether schools are to prepare us for adult life or further education, they are important. So it may be just a matter of luck if we get to a good school or not. That luck, however, can change our whole life. Section 25 University. Most people do not go to university. Some say it is only the lucky ones who go there. Probably we all will agree that to go to university is special. Have you heard of Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, Stanford? Some universities become world famous. Universities often produce famous men and women. They become leaders in politics, business, science, and art. But university is not just about learning. It is here where people make lifelong friends. Whilst university, people make decisions that affect their whole lives. Universities produce medicines and science, technology and research that can benefit humankind. Some universities are so big that they are like a whole town. We call this a campus. But not all universities are campus universities. Some are spread around a city or a town and do not group everyone together in the same place. Whichever they are, they all play an important part in the present and future of the world. Section 26 Electricity. If we try to think of the most important inventions, electricity will surely be on the list. For the last 100 years, it has played an important part in the development of the modern world. It affects everyone's life in one way or another. It is probably present the moment we are born and it stays with us throughout our lives. When the electricity goes off, we call it a power cut. Major power cuts in cities can have disastrous results for commerce and for life. Try to think of all the things, organizations, etc. that truly depend on electricity. In fact, it is probably more difficult to think of those not dependent on it. We also call electricity power, which shows how important it is. We could say that we take electricity for granted. In the modern world, the making of electricity is a major concern. Its production can harm our environment. Because of this, scientists and engineers are researching new ways of making it. Without it, our lives will change dramatically. And it is unlikely to be for the better. Section 27 Environment. What exactly is the environment? It's the world around us. You mean the sky and trees and things like that? Well, yes. But it can be even closer to home. In fact, your home is an environment. So it is anything that is around us, yeah. Yeah. But most people today think of it as nature. That's what I thought at first. Well, it has become very important today to think of the natural environment. Is that because we are afraid of what is happening in nature? Sure. It is really only in the last 50 years that we have realized what harm we are causing to the natural environment. But the damage was started long before that, wasn't it? I suppose it started with Industrial Revolution about 300 years ago. That's not very long, if you think how old the world is. No. But most of the environmental damage had been increasing dramatically over the past 100 years. Yes. But now we are aware of it, we are doing our best to rectify it. Section 28 Acid Rain. 50 years ago, no one talked about acid rain. Then we didn't really know the harm it was causing to the world. Today almost every adult and school child is aware of acid rain and its effects. It affects people all around the world. Even those who are not responsible for its creation suffer from it. It is caused mostly by the burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are coal, gas, oil and peat and create carbon when they are burned. Carbon is both necessary and dangerous in our world. Plants and trees need carbon dioxide, CO2, to breathe. Carbon monoxide, CO, however, is poisonous to us. When carbon and other elements get into the air, they mix with water in the clouds. The clouds move around the world and produce rain. This rain is like an acid and it destroys trees, plants, rivers, and fish when it falls. The more trees it destroys, the more difficult it is for nature to redress the balance. The burning of fossil fuels must be controlled in order to assist in the prevention of acid rain. Section 29 Global Warming. Some people say the Earth is getting warmer. They blame something called greenhouse gases. The greenhouse gases destroy the higher atmosphere that keeps our planet from getting too hot. CFCs are the gases that cause one of the biggest problems in global warming. CFCs destroy some of the ozone that is in the higher atmosphere. The ozone layer helps us by filter out some of the harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun. These rays can cause skin cancer in humans. These rays can also help to heat up our planet. Over the polar ice caps, we now have holes in the ozone layer. These, people believe, contribute to world's global warming. One of its effects could have is to speed up the melting of the polar ice caps. If these melt too quickly, the level of the sea will rise too fast for us to control it. The effect of a rise in the height of the sea will be dramatic. Many of the world's major cities will be under sea water. So, global warming can be very dangerous to our future environment. Section 30 Climate Change. El Niño, which is not an English name, is playing an important part in our lives. We often hear people talk about the strange weather we are having nowadays. The changing weather patterns are not fully understood yet. El Niño is one which is not clear in scientists' minds. It is a sort of warming of the seas that move around the Earth. Many strange weather phenomena are blamed on El Niño. But this may not be the real case. Global warming, the depletion of the ozone layer, acid rain etc. can all have an effect upon the weather. What are these effects that everyone is talking about? Tropical storms are appearing in non-tropical areas. Some parts of the world are heating up too much and crops are failing, deserts are extending, turning arable land into unfarmable land. Floods are coming to areas that have never experienced them before. Unnatural weather occurrences are happening everywhere. We are not certain what the long-term effects will be. It is certain, however, that we must pay attention to these occurrences. Section 31 Marriage. Marriage is an almost universal act. It is the coming together of two people to share their lives in an official way. In many countries, it has a religious connection. It is one of the oldest ceremonies remaining in most cultures. Most countries and religions set a minimum age for marriage. This will vary from country to country. In the UK, for example, a couple may marry at 16 years old. If a marriage is to be dissolved, we call this divorce. Some religions do not permit divorce. In the 20th century, some people decided to live together without getting married. This can be called common law marriage. Most people do this because they want a trial marriage before the real thing. It was thought that it was easier than going through divorce if the relationship didn't work. However, the law in many countries considers this, and after a few years of living together, similar laws to divorce apply. So, marriage is still popular even though common law marriage is still tried first, as people may eventually marry anyway. Section 32 Death. It is surprising how different cultures treat death. The ceremonies surrounding it vary from culture to culture, country to country. Even the colors associated with death vary. In Western cultures, black or gray are linked to death. In Asia, brighter colors are normal. In Western cultures, it is not polite to talk a lot about death. In other cultures, it may not be an uncommon talking point. The forms of burial vary also. In the West, people may be cremated, that is burned to ashes and then buried. They may also choose to be buried as a whole body. They will be buried in a special place called a cemetery. In some other places, they may be burned on a funeral pyre. What happens to us after we die is always a subject of variety and difference. Some think that after death there is nothing. Others think that there is a life after death or even reincarnation. Section 33 Birth. Of course, none of us can remember our own birth. If we could, I wonder what we would remember. For the mothers, it is a painful but usually a delightful experience. Hundreds of years ago, mothers and babies may die at the time of birth. Today, however, this is far less common. A midwife is usually present at the birth to assist the mother and the baby. In some countries, the father likes to be present at the birth. In the 9 months before the baby is born, the mother is said to be pregnant. Pregnancy changes many things in the woman's body, not just in her stomach. In modern society, there are many different ways of delivering the baby. Some mothers even have the baby under water. One of the first things we do when we are born is to cry. This enables us to take our first breath after the umbilical cord is cut. Then we quickly learn how to get food from our mothers. From then all our lives are different. Section 34 Clothes. Clothes make us the man, states an Old English saying. But is it true? If we think carefully, we will find that it is often the case. For example, when we see a man in a suit and tie, what do we think? Different professions may require different clothing. Why is this? It may be because our clothes tell others which professional or social group we belong to. People feel more comfortable if they can identify which group we are in. Usually males and females wear different types of clothing. In the 20th century, however, this changed. Women started to wear some of the traditional male clothing. Even different cultures are starting to change their clothes. Around the world, Western-style clothing is becoming more popular. Perhaps this is not always such a good thing. Variety in clothing can make our society more attractive and interesting. Section 35. The body. Throughout the world, our bodies are different colors. Hair, eyes, and skin may vary according to our genes. Other aspects of our body, thought, are roughly the same. Most of us can name all the external parts of the body. We usually can name several of our internal main organs, such as heart and lungs. To know all of the names of the parts of our bodies, we need to study for many years. Our bodies are really very marvelous things. The way that they continue to work year after year is wonderful. Of course, we need to take care of our bodies with the right diet and exercise. As we gain more knowledge about our bodies, so we understand better how to take care of them. In the last 100 years, people are taller, stronger, and live longer. This is because doctors and scientists know much more about how our bodies work. Their work has not stopped. And we can expect that we will go on learning more. Then our bodies will be even better equipped to handle our lifestyles. Perhaps soon most people will expect to live beyond 100 years old. Section 36. Illness. No one goes through life without getting ill. We usually think of illness as a bad thing. Sometimes, thought, it is necessary to be ill, especially when we are young. That's because we need to build up immunity against disease and sickness. Most children will get measles and mumps etc. when they are quite young. Then the effect of these illnesses is not usually very bad. If we get them when we are older, it can be much worse for us. Throughout history, we have fought against diseases and illnesses, and many will have been eradicated from most countries by the end of this century. But new ones seem to come along to challenge us, or perhaps these new ones were always there but we did not identify them. AIDS, acquired immunity deficiency syndrome, for example, we know is a modern disease. It may take decades to find a really effective cure for it. However, we can be encouraged by modern science, which has found cures for most illnesses. What about the common cold? One of oldest illnesses is still the most elusive to cure. Section 37. Cooking. Once we discovered fire, we learned how to cook. Since then, the methods of cooking vary tremendously. Culinary tastes have delivered boiling, baking, broiling, frying, grilling, roasting, and many other ways of cooking. Around the world, so many different ways of presenting food have evolved. Almost every country has its own cooking characteristics. In China, most hot food is quick-fired, whereas in the West, grilling is preferred. In Chinese homes, it is not common to see an oven. In the West, everyone has an oven for baking and roasting. Meat, in China, is usually cut up into small portions. In the West, large pieces of meat are often served at meal times. Today, some people do not eat meat, they are called vegetarians. Those who eat nothing associated with animals or fish are called vegans. Even without meat or fish, there is still a great variety of choice of foods. If we look in modern bookshops, we can see hundreds of books to teach us how to cook. For many, cooking and eating is one of the greatest pleasures in life. Section 38 Inventions. They say that the world's first great invention was the wheel. Perhaps we could argue that the discovery of fire was equally as important. Of course, we don't know who invented those. But we do know about modern inventions. Alexander Graham Bell, Marconi, and Faraday are all associated with inventions brought about as a result of electricity. A Scotsman called Logie Baird is said to have invented the television. And that has greatly changed our lives. What other inventions have changed our lives in a big way? Most of them probably. China is famous for its early inventions of printing, the compass, gunpowder, etc. Modern inventions will probably change our lives as much as older ones. The computer has already started to modify the way that we live. Communication seems to be the most dramatically affected by modern inventions. The fax machine, mobile phones, and internet are bringing new changes almost daily. Soon everyone will have a mobile phone that has easy access to the internet. Then we can expect to see pictures of the people we are talking to on the phone. Television, telephone, and computer will all be built into one small handheld machine. And today these changes are happening faster than at any other time in our history. Section 39 Languages. Language is one of the major forms of communication between people. Speech and writing are the main components of a language. By introducing grammar into language, we make it easier to communicate. The structure of language is different between languages. Word order, tense, noun and verb forms may vary. Some languages, like French and German, give nouns a gender. Others may change the verb according to gender. Some, like English, do not give genders to either noun or verb. The number of words used in a language varies considerably. In English, there are as many as almost 2 million words which can be used. Only about 60,000 are used daily, and in fact 10,000 words are enough to communicate well in English. One of the difficulties with language is that it is rarely static. That is, language is always changing as cultures meet and exchange ideas. New words enter our languages every year. Most are technical or scientific. The variety of languages in the world makes it more interesting than if we all spoke just one language. Section 40 Geography. What is the capital of this country? Where is such and such a country? This is what we think of when we think of geography. In fact, geography covers not just countries and cities, but the structure of our planet as well. Mountains and rivers, plains and forests, volcanoes and clouds are all part of geography. How well we know the world we live in, not just our own country, determines how knowledgeable we are about geography. The structure of the land, the rock formations, etc. are of equal importance to geographies as is which countries are where. Our recent concern about the environment has stimulated people's interest in it. Weather patterns and their changes are all part of it. With 2/3 of the world covered in water, the study of the seas, oceans, and rivers is as important as the study of land masses. It is interesting to look at old books and maps of the world and to see how things have changed. Countries change their names and borders just as nature changes our environment. the effect of political influences changes the geography of our world too. Therefore, we can see that geography, like language, is not static. So, if we want to keep informed, we must constantly watch the changes. Section 41 Shopping. A Western supermarket is so unlike what we see in China. In fact, China does not have many real supermarkets outside of the major cities. To enter a huge building and buy anything from food to furniture all on one floor is quite uncommon in China. When we think of shopping, we usually think of buying food and clothes. Modern Western supermarkets sell boats, and you can also buy furniture, newspapers, household items, and electrical and electronic goods. On entering a supermarket, we usually take a small basket or trolley. This will depend on how much we plan to purchase. Wheeling a large trolley around a supermarket can be a pleasant experience. As we walk along aisle after aisle, putting in the things we want, we can get most things in one single store. Then we queue at the checkout and wait for the clerk to tell us how much to pay. We can pay by cash, check or credit card, it doesn't matter to the supermarket. Nowadays we can even go shopping without leaving our home. We can purchase our daily goods over the internet. We are shown a supermarket and on the screen we go down the aisles. We pay by credit card, and the purchases are delivered to our homes the same day. Section 42 Visiting the doctor. In China, when people get ill, they usually go to the hospital. In the West, people will go to their doctor. Every person will be registered with a doctor who gets to know them well. The doctor will keep a medical record which is a history of your health. Usually, before going to the doctor, we will telephone for an appointment. Then we go to the doctor's surgery at the appointed time and wait until the doctor is ready. We will wait in the waiting room with the other people who want to see the doctor. When it is our turn to go in, we usually go in alone and in private. Then the doctor will ask some questions before he or she decides what to do. Usually the doctor will prescribe medicines for us to take. If there is something very serious, then the doctor may decide to send us to hospital. If we are too ill to go to the surgery, the doctor will visit us at our home. In Europe, the doctor will be paid by the government, not by the patient. However, we may have to pay for the medicine that is prescribed. Doctors are very respected members of the community. Section 43 Hospitals. If we are very ill or need surgery, we go to the hospital. Hospitals are usually very big places, especially in developed countries. The hospital will be separated into departments. Each department will specialize in one kind of illness or in one part of the body. There are many different kinds of skilled people working in hospitals. There are administrators, cooks, cleaners and porters, as well as surgeons, doctors, and nurses. There may be special hospitals just for children, old people, or for maternity. Hospitals are usually extremely clean and hygienic, which is very important. If you visit hospital and don't stay in overnight, you are called an outpatient. Otherwise, you will stay in bed and be cared for by the nurses and doctors. In the West, there are usually specific times when friends can visit. In emergencies, people may be taken to hospital in an ambulance. The ambulance drivers will be skilled in first aid or paramedics. The ambulance may also take you back home if a car etc. is not convenient. Of course, it is important that every community has access to a hospital. Section 44 at sea. Throughout history, people have left the land and taken to the sea. This has been done to catch food by fishing or to visit other lands. Boats and ships have been used for this purpose. The first boats were made of wood, as many are still today. Paddles were first used to propel the boats and then sails were used. Eventually, more sails were added to give speed to the ships and boats. Later, coal was used to create steam-driven engines. Today, most ships or boats use oil-based fuels. There are rules and laws at sea, called maritime law. Thieves at sea are called pirates, they break the maritime laws. All sailors know to respect the sea as it can be a very dangerous place. Perhaps drowning is one of the most feared forms of dying. The seabed is littered with thousands of years of shipping that sunk. Nowadays, some people dive for the treasures that sunken ships may hold. The fated ship, Titanic, has recently been one such ship that has reviewed its sunken treasures. Section 45 Swimming etc. The crawl, the backstroke, the breaststroke and the butterfly. What are these? They are the different strokes we can use when swimming. There are others, but these are the main ones. These are strokes used for swimming on the water. But what about under the water? Snorkeling is a method of swimming on the surface while looking under the sea. We use a tube which fixes into our mouth for breathing, and a mask to help us see. This way we can skim along the surface without bringing our head out of the water for air. We use scuba equipment if we want to go deeper and stay under the water for a longer time. Scuba is an acronym for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Usually when scuba diving, we will wear a special waterproof suit, a weighted belt, a mask, flippers, and an oxygen tank. In order to do this kind of diving, we should first be trained, as it can be dangerous. Another form of diving is to plunge into the water from above the surface. This is also an event in the Olympic Games, which involves many different styles. Synchronized swimming is a form of dance performed in the water, and is also an Olympic event. So we can use the water in many exciting and interesting ways. Section 46 Holidays. How often do you go on holidays? Do you mean to have a break from work or to travel? I mean to travel out of your area. Well, that depends how much money I have to spend. What do you mean? Well, if I have a lot of money, I will go abroad, to visit another country. And if not, then I will just go to the local beach, or visit some local places of interest. What sort of places would you visit locally on holiday? Sometimes I will visit friends or relatives, or perhaps I will go to visit museums, art galleries, or ancient buildings. Anything else? Yes. I will go to the countryside and climb some mountains. What about you? Me? I always go abroad to see other countries and cultures. But that can be expensive counted. Not if you go to countries which are much cheaper than yours. Then your money can go much further. Section 47 Books. have you any idea how many different kinds of books there are? No, I don't. But I'm sure you are going to tell me. Well, I don't know exactly. But I do know there are a lot. For example, there are novels and textbooks, fact and fiction. Ah, yes. There are many different kinds of novels, you know. Like crime novels, science fiction and horror and romance. Yes. I love romance novels. What about non-fiction books? Oh, like biographies and autobiographies. Yes, and true life stories. Those can be very interesting. And then there are books on all sorts of other things, like science. Yes, and medicine and geography and history and travel. Sure. And what about children's book? There are thousands of those. So we still don't know how many different kinds there are. But I think there are too many to count and too many genres. Section 48 Magazines. For just about every interest in life, there is a magazine. What do you mean? Well, you think of a subject, and you can be sure there is magazine you can buy for it. Yes, I suppose you are right. Why do you think that is? Probably because the publishers of magazines make money from them. Sure. But I think that they must also have a special interest in what they are writing about, or they get writers who know the subject to write about it. There are also general magazines as well. Like children's or women's magazines, you mean? Yeah. They cover the sort of material that is of interest to a particular but wide audience. Actually I prefer reading magazines to books. Why is that? I think it's because I can read them quicker. Yeah. You can pick them up and put them down after just a short read. And they are usually cheaper than books. I like that. Section 49 Water. H2O, have you ever thought how important it is to us? Ah, that's water, isn't it? Yes. And without it, we can't live. I know that. I drink it every day in tea, coffee and juices. And just about every other thing I drink contains water. And it is good for washing our bodies, clothes and homes. Of course, that's obvious, but what about some of the less obvious uses? Well, it is used for heating, in some houses where they have central heating. And it is used for transport, you know, for ships on the sea and in rivers. Yeah. And if we had no water, we wouldn't have fish to eat, would we? That's true. And our body contains a lot of water, in blood, etc. Of course. In rainfall, it helps all the plants and flowers to grow. And food, imagine what foods we would be left with without water. It doesn't bear thinking about, does it? We wouldn't even have paper without water, nor ink. In fact, without water, we could hardly have life, could we? Section 50 Positions. How many different positions can you think of? Positions of what? Body positions, you mean? Yeah. You know, like standing, sitting, lying. Well, even those you mentioned have different positions. Yeah. like standing or sitting up straight or slouched, or lying flat on one's back. And there is kneeling and crawling. Jumping and hopping are sort of positions, but not really. Why not? Because I always think of positions as fixed for a period of time, you know, longer than a jump or a hop. Yeah, okay. So what other body positions are there? How about the kowtow? I know it's a sort of kneeling position, but it still counts, yeah. Okay, squatting, that's another position. And bowing and curtsying are also positions. Upside down and back to front, they count too. Inside out is also a position, but I can't imagine it as a body position, can you? Section 51, toilet. Do you know what euphemism is? Sure. It's when we use a polite word instead of a more accurate one. That's right. And I was thinking that there are probably more euphemisms for toilet than any other word. Yeah. I can think of loads, like WC, washroom, bathroom, powder room, little boy's room and lavatory, loo, bog, and some words which are really not very polite at all. But do you know that the word toilet can also be a verb? No, I didn't. How? Well, many years ago, people would say to do one's toilet, which meant to wash and dress. So which do you think is the best one to use? Well, I think it depends where you are. In China, for example, most people will call it the WC. Yeah. That's short for water closet, isn't it? But the Americans seem to prefer to use bathroom or washroom or even restroom. The British often use gents or ladies. And I have also seen the word lavatory used on some aeroplanes. I think the best thing is to listen to what the people use in the country you are in, and copy that. Section 52, washing. Did you know that the use of soap to wash the body is quite a relatively recent thing? No. What did they use before? Powders and perfume, I suppose. But people didn't used to wash as much as we do today. If you think about it, baths and showers were not used much until 100 years or so ago, or perhaps even less. Yeah. Showers in most countries are a recent habit. What about saunas and Turkish baths? Well, the ancient Greeks and Romans had baths, and possibly they had steam bath too. That's a bit like saunas. But no showers? I don't think so. And no shower gel to wash with, or shower caps to keep the hair dry. I think that nowadays more people shower than bath, don't you? Yes. Well, you need a bigger room for a bath than a shower, don't you? And showers are quicker and don't use so much water. That's important with the modern concern about water consumption. But I think it is more luxurious to relax in a hot bath. Me too. Section 53, toys. The first toy I remember being given was a doll. You probably had other toys, you know, squeaky things when you are a baby. Maybe. What was the first toy you can remember? I think it was probably a car or a gun. That's because you are a boy and I am a girl. Yeah. Well, boys get boys' toys and girls get dolls and pretend babies, don't they? Yes. But I am not sure it is the right thing to do though. Why not? Because it preconditions the sexes what to expect to be or do when they are older. Yeah. But not all toys are gender-driven, are they? I suppose not. What can you think of what is not gender-driven? How about jigsaw puzzles, you know, where you put pieces together to make a picture? Oh, yes. And crayons, pens, pencils. Yes. And board games are not usually specific for boys or girls, are they? No, not normally. But are they toys or games? Is there a difference? Section 54 Games etc. Sometimes it is difficult to identify exactly what is a game and what is not. For example, football is a game, and so is chess. So what really is a game? Is fishing a game, a sport or a hobby? It can be a sport and a hobby, but not a game. You see, a sport involves physical activity, a game or hobby doesn't need to. So we can play board games like chess or drafts that involve little physical effort. We can collect stamps or coins which are hobbies, and are neither games nor sports. Watching sports can be considered a hobby, but participating rarely is. Playing card games is not really a sport, but can be thought of as a hobby. We often hear people say that their hobby is playing tennis etc. But it's more of a sport than a hobby. Actually, it's not wrong to use either term. Computer games are becoming more and more popular. These do not involve any physical exertion. They are also taking over from board games. They are considered more exciting and competitive. Section 55 Dance. I think that dancing must be one of the oldest forms of entertainment. Yes. Even the most primitive societies had some forms of dance. Originally, dance was to celebrate some event or occasion. Today, we do not need a reason, we dance for pleasure. What kind of dancing do you like? I think it can best be described as ballroom dancing. Oh, you mean the formal sort of dancing with a partner? Yes, the kind that dances to beautiful music. What about disco dancing? Do you like that? No. It is too noisy and crowded in discos, and I am not sure how to do it. It's easy. You just relax and do whatever the music makes you feel like doing. I think I prefer more structured dancing. I think it is more skillful. Maybe. But disco dancing is easier and more fun, I think. It's also more tiring. True. Many people use it as a form of exercise. Section 56 Computers. Do you understand computers? Well, I know how to use one, and basically what it can do. So, what is the point of using a computer? Well, it is there because it can do things so quickly. Like what, for example? Like word processing, you know, writing letters and things. Is that faster than by hand? Sure. It is so easy to correct mistake without having to throw away what you have already written. So what else are they useful for? Calculations and spreadsheets are so much easier by computer. And what about communications? I hear they are important in computing. Yeah. Email and internet are the big things now. But do you think computers will change our lives much? Of course. But with the right attitude, a positive attitude, you can see that it will make our lives much better. I sure hope you're right. Section 57 Directions. Can you tell me the way to the post office, please? Yes. Take the next left, third on your right, and it's opposite the library. Is it the same if I am driving a car? Ah, no. Because of the one-way system. How does that change it? Well, then you must take the third exit at the roundabout. And where does that take me? That will take you past the police station. And then where? Then take the first on the left and right at the next junction. There is a flyover there, isn't there? Yes. So bear left on flyover and come off at the first exit. Am I far from the post office then? No, it's immediately on your left at the T-junction. I think I've got all that, thanks. Section 58 Internet. The Internet is the latest innovation in computing communication. People call it the net or WWW, which means World Wide Web. The Internet can provide very quick access to a mass of data. By using one of the many search engines on the web, we can get information about almost anything you can imagine. You simply type in a word or phrase to describe what you are seeking. Then the web will give you many choices of where to find what you want. Then you scroll down the list of suggestions and choose what you think is right. The whole process takes just a minute or so. In some cases it takes just seconds. Usually when you find what you want, it will direct you to other similar links. Most people also use the net for email, electronic mail. This enables us to send letters in a matter of seconds rather than days. All that is needed is your email address and the email address of person you want to write to. Advertising is very big on the internet now, too. All big companies do it. Business to business, B2B, and e-commerce are becoming new ways of doing business transactions. Shopping on the net is becoming popular too. Section 59 Transport. They say that space travel is the safest form of transport. However, most of us will not experience that in our lifetime. Flying is also quite safe compared to other forms. People get a little nervous the first time they fly. In airports, everything is written in the local language, and in international airports, in English as well. Airport staff are usually very helpful and friendly too. With the improvement in infrastructure in most countries, road and rail travel are becoming much more efficient. Highways, motorways, and freeways make road travel very convenient. Modern high-speed trains ensure quickness between cities. In some large cities, there are underground rail systems called metros. American cities call these subways, but in Europe, subways are for walking under the main roads. As people get more concerned about inner-city pollution from traffic, public transport becomes more crucial. Making buses, taxis, and trains cheaper and more efficient will get more people to use them instead of using their cars. Nowadays, people can be penalized for having just one person per car in the city. Like many things today, transport is changing due to environmental pressures. Section 60. Which knife? Once we are used to using chopsticks, it becomes easy. Why? Well, there is no choice in which chopstick to use. They are basically the same. However, in the West, where chopsticks are not so common, it can be difficult. Usually it is easy to know how to use a knife and fork. The knife is placed on the right, and fork on the left. We use the related hand for each, fork in the left hand, knife in the right. But sometimes there may be more than one knife and fork. Then it can look a little daunting. The simple rule is to work from the outside in. That is, for the first course, use the outside knife and fork. Then work in for each course. There may be a separate smaller knife on the side plate for bread and butter. If fish is being served, then a special knife is used for cutting and eating the fish. A steak knife has a serrated edge to make cutting the meat easier. So, remember, work from the outside in, and you will be okay. Section 61. Weather. People say that the British always talk about the weather. That's because the weather is so changeable in the UK. At greetings, they will often comment on the state of the weather. For example, they may say a hello, lovely day today when they meet. Other terms are used, of course, if the weather is different. But the phrases they use may be difficult for foreigners to understand. Weather's taken a turn for the worse means that the weather changed from good to not so good. It's raining cats and dogs is a strange expression that means it is raining very heavily. A pea souper is very thick fog. It is used because pea soup is also very thick. An Indian summer is when it is hot and sunny later in the year than usual. Brass monkey weather means it is very, very cold. This comes from the brass cannonballs used on ships long ago. If it was very cold, they would freeze. So we said cold enough to freeze the balls of a brass monkey. Rain can be described as spitting, spots of rain, drizzle, light rain, showers, intermittent rain, pouring down, heavy rain or torrential, very heavy rain. Wind can be described as light, blustery or gale force. Typhoons are not common in Europe, so the word maybe comes from Asia. Hurricanes are like typhoons. Section 62. Art. Art can describe all forms of artistic skills. Dance, literature, painting, sculpture, and acting are all forms of art. Generally, when we use the word art, we think of paintings. Names of Michelangelo, Picasso, Van Gogh, and Monet spring to mind. Each of these artists differed according to the art form they specialized in. The great period of change for art came during the Renaissance about 400 to 500 years ago. The Impressionist period of art came at the end of the 19th century. Here Monet was probably the most successful and famous. Abstract art is much more difficult to understand, see Picasso. As each generation of artists strikes to create new forms, so change comes. Modern artists use all sorts of different materials from their predecessors. Art varies from country to country also. Artists try to interpret the modern world through their paintings. Calligraphy is an important art form in China, but not so important in the West. The great variety of art in the world is what makes it so beautiful. It's interesting to consider what art may be like in the long-term future. Section 63 in the countryside. Mention countryside, and what do people think of? Usually mountains and hills, valleys and rivers, trees and flowers. They think of walking in beautiful and peaceful environments. Do you that in the West, there are special laws for the countryside? In Britain, they have something called the Countryside Code. They even have countryside wardens who are sort of policemen of the countryside. This is all to protect the countryside from city dwellers who don't understand the ecological balance of the world outside the city. We should remember that farmers and others rely upon the countryside for their living. If we disturb the ecological balance, those living there find it hard to survive. The balance between flora and fauna, animal and man is crucial to survival. As we destroy or change the countryside, wildlife and vegetation is changed. Just walking in the wrong places can destroy species of wildlife. Leaving rubbish or garbage lying around can kill some animals who try to eat it. Driving too many cars into rural areas can pollute and destroy life there. We should remember that plants are as much living things as humans and animals. Section 64 Under the Sea. Perhaps the most unexplored area on this planet is under the sea. Today there are large areas which we have never been to. They are too deep for us to examine in detail. Although we do have commercial exploration of the seabed, it is still unknown. The marine life of the upper and middle waters are fairly well recorded. However, the deep sea environment can still reveal many secrets. To explore these areas is difficult because of the great pressure deep down. We cannot build the right machines that can sustain life at the very bottom. When we are able to do so, we will discover a whole new world of marine matter. The sea is a source of food for many people and a source of income. We have deep sea villages drilling for oil and gas under the seabed. The natural resources of the deep sea are still relatively untapped. It could be that there lies some of the solutions to our resources problems. Having learned from our mistakes towards the environment on the surface of the Earth, we will be more cautious when utilizing the world below it. Science will reveal the secrets of deep sea one day, and it will be very exciting to learn what is there. Section 65 Mountains. The highest mountain in the world is in Asia. It is called Mount Everest. The first man to climb to the top of it was Sir Edmund Hillary. He was an Englishman who used the services of the local shepherd guides. The most famous of these shepherds was Shepherd Tenzing, who helped Hillary. Since the 1950s, when Mount Everest was first conquered, many others have tried. Many people have died trying to climb Everest and other mountains. When asked why he climbed it, Hillary simply answered, "Because it is there." This pioneering attitude has driven countless others to attempt mountaineering. When we go very high, the air contains less oxygen. We call this thin or rare air. It makes breathing very difficult and drains the energy of climbers. However, when these people reach the mountain peaks, they are rewarded with the cleanest air and the most panoramic views. Of course, as we climb higher, so the temperature decreases, and extreme cold is felt. The challenge of defeating a mountain is what drives on most mountaineers. This drive to succeed where no one has is a tremendous characteristic of humans. Section 66 Travel Guides. Can you imagine trying to go to a new place without a travel guide? Hundreds of years ago, explorers had no such things. As these people opened up more new areas to us, they wrote about them. These writings formed a new genre of literature called travel writing. Some travel guides are just pure factual data, others are more entertaining. Perhaps we could call train, plane, and bus schedules travel guides, but they are not very interesting. So, what do people expect when they buy and read such guides? They expect to get a lot of details about the places they are interested in. They want to know what to expect when they get there, climate, food customs. They like to know what are the most interesting places to visit, and what difficulties to expect when they get there. The variety of places to eat and kinds of food served will also be mentioned in the guides. But a travel guide need not be a book. It could be a pamphlet or even a person. In most major tourist areas, you can hire the service of a person who will act as your travel guide. They will help you to get to the right places as safely as possible. There are millions of travel guides of all kinds in the world. And reading them can be almost as good as the real thing. Section 67 Atlas, Map, Globe. Do you know the difference between an atlas, a map, and a globe? A map usually is a plan of an area or region or town. We can get street maps that can help us find a way around a city or town. We can get regional maps which show us on a larger scale an area. Maps can cover whole countries, continents, or even the world. Without detailed maps, it would be difficult to find our way around or to a new area. An atlas is a book of maps. Usually an atlas will contain maps of each region and every country of the world. Also, an atlas may give us pictorial images of the political, demographic, and environmental points of the areas covered. Old maps and atlases were hand-drawn by explorers and city planners. Today these maps may be drawn by computers using the latest satellite technology. In the West, almost every home will contain an atlas. A globe is a map of the world as it really looks. An atlas is two-dimensional and flat. A globe is just like the Earth, round and able to spin. Section 68 Politics. No one in the modern world escapes the effects of politics. Most of us think of politics as having to do with government leaders. Those politics dictate the life of a country and the manner in which its people live. Politics and politicians can create peace and wealth, or war and poverty. Intergovernmental diplomacy between different countries may rely on ambassadors who represent their countries abroad. Domestic and international policies are decided by politicians. However, politics comes into our lives every day without the big world of government politics. Inside our workplace, politics may determine who our bosses are. This is because a form of politics is in operation in all companies. People use politics to gain position or to win over their ideas or plans. Politics utilizes the implementation of power through manipulation of people. Politicians need to build a network of allies to support their actions. This applies to our social lives sometimes. Most people will say that they hate politics or don't understand them. However, they are a necessity of life, and none of us escape political influences. Section 69 Goodbyes. Goodbye seems such a simple and common word. This English word is known all around the world, yet there are many ways to say it. In some countries, they use the same word for goodbye as hello. Arabs and Israelis say salam or shalom for both hello and goodbye, and it means peace. In the West we can say see you later, so long, farewell, etc. We often use phrases adopted from other languages. Au revoir, French, ciao, Italian are very commonly used in the West. A wave of the hand can say both hello and goodbye in most cultures. To most of us, saying goodbye to close friends and family can be very painful. If we know it is going to be for a long time, then goodbyes are emotional. Nice to have met you, looking forward to seeing you again, welcome back are terms used in situations where we don't know the other person so well. Goodbyes have polite forms, informal forms, and close friendship forms. A goodbye can be accompanied by a kiss, or a shake of hands, or just smile and nod. One thing is for sure, most of the time hello is better than goodbye. However we say it, it should always be remembered that we can never say goodbye if there has never been hello first.